Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year 2026. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you are really well despite the world news and situation, and that you are all on for 2026. But anyway, thank you for joining us for this first webinar of 2026 with a very crucial topic, which is gender and representation, deconstructing stereotypes and disinformation in the media, something that we have not tackled yet at the association. My name is Chloé. I'm a project officer specialized in digital and media literacy. I will be your host and moderator for this afternoon's session. So I see that we have a lot of people coming in with us right now. So while people are still joining, I would like to share with you a couple of house rules. So for those who are familiar with our webinars, you kind of know the rules, but I will repeat them anyway. The first one actually is if you could keep your mic off for the moment. We'll have plenty of time to interact with our speakers. We will ask you if you have any question, you can put them in the chat. If we don't understand, we will ask you for clarification. But so indeed, we'll have plenty of time to interact. So please keep your mic off. Also, if it's possible, I'll ask you to adjust your name in the Zoom to include your institution in the country you're from. It's always nice to see where everyone is joining us from. If you could also keep your camera on, because it's nice to see faces and familiar faces, friends, colleagues, and also new people joining us. Instead of black screen. It's always good. I wanted also to let you know that this session is recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel a couple of days afterwards. And I think that's about it for the house rules. So if anyone has any question, please don't hesitate and just put it in the chat. So as I said, today's topic is really crucial. It focuses on gender stereotypes, bias representations, gendered narratives, and these issues are crucial for educators, not only, but educators is our target group. And these patterns in media influence public representation, public perception, they shape social norms, and can even fuel gender-based disinformation, and this is why we are here today. So our agenda, I think you can see it, it's up on the screen. So we'll have 3 very interesting speakers and 3 coming from different backgrounds. So we'll have a more practitioner approach, regulator, but also a more research presentation. So first, we'll have a presentation for Dr. Sindy Sumter. So I would like to apologize first for mispronouncing any names today. My Dutch is not always the best. She's an associate professor with a colleague, Dr. Irene van Driel, assistant professor from the University of Amsterdam. They are part of the Department of School of Communication Research, and they will be presenting a project or an initiative called Simi Bimi, that combines teaching, research, and outreach on media representation, gender, ethnicity, and sexuality. So Sindy and Irene, thank you for being here, and I will give you the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting us. We are here at this lovely building that you hopefully now see on your screen on the 10th floor with a great view of Amsterdam, because this building is part of the University of Amsterdam, and we welcome a host of different students from all over the world, and of course also from the EU. We offer in an international bachelor program as well as an international master program, and we are known for the research that we do. And the Simi Bimi initiative that we will be talking about today is actually situated within the University of Amsterdam, and specifically within a research center that is specialized in research on children, adolescents, and the media. And we were founded, CAM specifically, back in 2006, and we have a long history of trying to understand the interplay between media use and youth development, and really trying to understand both the opportunities and the risks that come with this. So as I was introduced, my name is Cindy Sumter, and I'm an associate professor studying the interplay of youth and media with a particular focus on identity. Next to me is Irene.
Hi, and nice to meet you. I'll talk in the second half of this talk and explain a little bit more about the impacts of identity development and media.
And together we are what I would say the co-founders of the See Me Be Me initiative, and we work on a large scale of projects, but all our questions are really driven with this media psychological approach, trying to understand how we can capitalize on the affordances of media and downplaying the risks. And today we will really highlight why we actually started the See Me Be Me initiative and the research that we are doing now. And a question, of course, that we get asked quite a lot is, what does See Me Be Me stand for? And from our perspective, See Me Be Me is really both an invitation and a call for more attention. So it's really giving young people the opportunity to be seen and kind of voicing their concerns or their questions of wanting to be seen by others. And hopefully in today's presentation, it will become a little bit more clear. As youth and media scholars, I sometimes feel that what we're trying to explain is like grasping at sand, because the youth and media landscaping is changing so rapidly. If we're thinking about the type of media and technology that young people are exposed to, the screen time in particular that is rapidly increasing. We see it year after year. We see new platforms arise. We see new creators coming on this media landscape. So whenever we are looking at a question, we're like, oh, are we already behind? So we're really trying to make sense of a really rapidly changing media landscape, and also in a period, because we're focusing on kids and teens, that are also rapidly changing themselves. So it's an interesting challenge. And we try to make sense of this by a shared vision that we have within our research center. And so one thing is that all of our colleagues have one shared goal, and that's to understand how young people, children and adolescents, so we're starting really from early primary school all the way up to 18-year-olds, to see how they are shaped by their media experiences. And what might be important to say in this particular context is that we specifically focus on entertainment media, where other scholars might focus specifically more on news media or political media. We really try to understand the entertainment media landscape, because this is where young people are spending so much of their time. And also when we ask young people or even adults to think of some of their most impactful media experiences, the examples that we often get are examples from entertainment media. So also when I would address you, it's difficult now to make this connection, but if I would ask you to think back of when you were young and think of a media moment that really stuck with you, I'm really curious to know how many of you kind of think back of that favorite media entertainment character that they spent their teens with, or that they spent their time with as a toddler. So I think whenever we're talking about youth and media, I think it's also helpful to think back of how we interacted with the media to really understand how impactful this can be. The other thing is, because it's always changing, that we are also, as a research group, continuously trying to understand what is the most pressing concern and what is currently what young people are really focused on, where we can try and understand how they are impacted by it. And the third thing that we do is that we have a shared methodological approach, where we really highlight that if we want to understand media effects, we need to look at the individual, that we cannot talk about universal direct impacts of media on the outcome variables that we're interested in. So whenever we try to unpack what causes a particular media effect, whether it's attention problems, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's academic performance, we really say that you have to look at least three aspects of this media experience. The first aspect, of course, is the content. When we're talking about screen time, we often forget to focus on the content, and we really focus quite a lot of our discussions on time, where spending time with educational content, of course, is something completely different than spending time with violent or age inappropriate content. The second element that we think is really important is the context in which media is being used. Are they using whatever media they are exposed to together with a parent who's giving them more information, or is it together with a peer who might be actually encouraging problematic behavior? And the third aspect, which is, of course, quite clear, but something that we also not really look at carefully in all our discussions, is what child are we actually talking about? And when we're looking at these different children, of course, they differ in age, but they also differ in personality, mood, social skills, pre-existing attention skills, and also pre-existing mental health issues. And all of this doesn't only predict the type of media that they're drawn to, but also that they're affected. And we have a wide range of studies on this particular topic. But what we noticed is that one identity or one characteristics of children that was overlooked was really their identity. So what was their sexual orientation? What was their religion? What was their gender? And how does this help us understand how they are affected by media? So this is something that really struck me, and slowly I found colleagues within our department that shared this curiosity to understand the role of identity in this complex research field that we have of youth and media. And I also felt that this was driven by a strong societal need. Like any other big city in Europe, our young people are becoming much more diverse. And we're also seeing a lot of polarization, which seems to kind of rely on the fact that we don't know people who are different from us well enough. So the idea here is, how can we have, can media play a role in this? And also our students. Our students were really asking for, but what content does media that I watched as a child, how did it affect me? So there is a societal need and a student need. So we, together with our colleague Chebiedo, kind of came together and thought, well, we have all these ideas, but how do we translate this into an actual initiative? And from the get-go, it was really clear that we didn't only want to do research. For us, it was super important that we also did outreach, and that we wanted to be sure that our research insights were also translated into interventions or educational packages, and also informed the classes that we teach in our university specifically. And we wanted to connect with other scholars, but also young people and content creators. So in everything we do, that's really what drives us. And we didn't only want to focus on what's problematic, but also on solutions. So we started as a small initiative, and we are slowly growing, where we don't only have communication scholars in our team, but we also have people from the business school, people who have more of a computational background, coming together to unpack this particular issue. And when we're talking about media entertainment, for us, it's important mainly because it offers young people, and I think this has been mentioned quite often now, mirrors to see, oh, this is who I can be in the future. This is who I can grow up to be, but it also offers them windows to people who are different from that. And in our research group, we are interested in all different types of identity characteristics in this discussion. But of course, gender is one of the most prominent ones that also has quite a longer research tradition. And when we were invited for this particular webinar, we actually looked back at some of the first things that we did. And it kind of came as a sort of as a surprise again, that our first ever See Me, Be Me event was an event that focused specifically on gender. And in this event, we looked at the gender science role models that were found in traditional entertainment media. And I think Irene will talk a little bit about who these science role models also are. But what was nice about this particular first event is that we didn't only sketch the existing body of research that was out there, but also together with our attendees, we tried to create a handout that was meant for media content creators to give them suggestions on which role models we as viewers were missing and would like to see. And often these were role models where women were shown as scientists in an authentic and relatable manner. So I think it was nice to see how that connected with Simi Bimi. And I think Irene will talk a little bit more about what does gender representation mean in entertainment media and how do our new project also relate to this particular topic.
Yes, thank you. So perfect transition, as if we practiced it. I will talk a bit about the initiative. So it's just an overview. We do more than you see here, but in the end, or at the end of the presentation, please feel free to always contact us in whatever form or shape fits your question. Let's start with the research that we do. So when it comes to gender representation, we specifically do things in 3 steps. So one is summarize research. So that would mean, for example, review any research on this specific topic. Then from there, we identify the main challenges for representation. And then from there, we look at what type of evidence-based interventions can we contribute with our research team to sort of address the issue from multiple perspectives. And also to make sure that these interventions actually match the needs of, for example, media creators, right? So a lot of times there's a misalignment between what scientists do and how society actually needs solutions. So we're trying to do these in more collaborative efforts, also with a lot of coffees and workshops and meetups to sort of learn about needs and where we can play a role in, from our knowledge background. So if we look at this first step of summarizing research, so I will try to keep it short, but basically what is important to understand is that we all develop a gender role or multiple gender roles in a hierarchy of a system where media is also a part of, right? So media on itself never has a standalone effect. It is usually the repetition of messages that comes through all these different systems that are based in a history of why gender roles are as they are. And we're trying to understand how gender roles develop and how we can isolate media in sort of understanding it. And basically, media merely reflects the dominant perspectives on, for example, gender roles that we already are. So it's this repetitive effect over time that has an effect on how kids think about what gender is and how they should be in relation to their gender. And so interestingly, before 3 years old, kids do not really have gendered preferences when it comes to media characters. So these are the most listed media characters before 3 years old. A lot of these data are, of course, US-based because that's still the dominant research information, but we also, of course, watch also in Europe, a lot of media content that comes from the US. And these gendered preferences really start to evolve later. So like it sort of starts at 3 years old, roughly, and then it becomes more and more gender role specific, the way society sort of sends these messages out about what gender is and how you should think about it. And so, and that of course intersects with what the media offers, right? So kids early on see that the majority of characters already in cartoons, for example, are boys, or at least male characters, and a small portion of them are female characters. And these characters also have less varied roles, and the male characters have more varied roles. So there's already sort of a representation of what a child can be that starts very early on. And so how does this come about? So we distinguish in quantity and quality of representations. And so quantity sends out a message to a kid. So if boys are, for example, overrepresented, then it makes them feel, for example, more important than girls. And underrepresentation is the opposite. And then there's also, of course, absence of representation. So think of genders that we hardly or never see, for example, transgender, non-binary characters. And so, what is good or what is bad is something that we will get to later. But we can think about that in terms of quantity and in terms of quality. So in terms of quality, is any type of misrepresentation that can be gender role stereotypes, body representation, sexualization. So anything that boys and girls learn, hey, this is how I should behave, this is what I should wear, this is what I can be, and then sort of results in things like very early on, girls already learning that boys are better than them, and boys engaged later in more stereotype play, and this is all media effects related, right? So if you isolate the media effect, this is really the contribution that media has because of the frequent portrayals that you see. And then teenager age, for example, a message that we see a lot is that self-worth is equated with appearance for boys as well as girls. And then if you think about roles, so more quality of presentation, it's that the girl is a princess and sweet, and the boys are more dominant, more likely to be scientists, more likely to be firemen. So it's in all kinds of messaging. It can be related to the careers that you have, the type of things that you're supposed to wear. And these reflect really more the dominant ideas that are already, of course, present in society. And of course, this is changing, but this is still very much the case in 2026, right? Is where we are now. And it's very pervasive, meaning it is also in any other type of media design that you look at. So in robots, these roles are similarly, although it looks different, but the similar role development. And also the fact that they are white is another issue if we talk about intersectionality. So then the step 2 that we look at is, so what are then the challenges? Why don't we just do it right already? Because it seems that we all know that there are problems, and still to this day. So if you look at these pictures, you may have seen them. I think 2022, it's when Encanto came out and these pictures went viral. And these are relatively regular kids, and still it became global news that they saw themselves reflected, which sort of is an indicator for us that we still have a while to go to really be equally representing, but also to show how global these media effects are and how these similar messages are also westernized, but still global, and that we should look beyond just the frequency of boy-girl, but also look at intersections, body representations, all types of variations. Now, so what are some of the challenges that we identified? A lot of times, media industry, for example, focus on quantity. Okay, then let's represent more girls. But then they don't really look at the quantity. So if you can see, for example, in Totally Spies, okay, we have 3 main characters that are women and that are spies, which is a bit counter-stereotypical, you could say. But then they are still highly sexualized. For example, their suits are still super body tight, right? So it's a lot of focus on quantity, and we don't look as much yet on quality. And same for video games. We see an increase in video game characters that are female and playable, but they are still highly sexualized. And same for men that are highly masculine, muscular, a lot of focus on, also focus on body. So we research girls a lot, but we really find similar effects for boys. Now, another solution that people have tried is then, okay, let's hire more women in the creation process so that then we have more diverse characters and creations. But the point is, if you do that in isolation, in a majority norm context, it means you still get the same output. So, for example, this is a quote from researchers who interviewed male video game designers, and they say, hey, I have to adhere to a norm where it is money. How much money is this going to make? This concept already works, so let's just do it. And the same, they don't really focus on the diversity, but more on, will this make money? And that is the main thing that they say they have to adhere to, and they're on a timeline. So the real good design is not always, there's always time for it. And then if you hire more women, they are still lower in number and have to fight more to, get the character that they want. And at the same time, they are so used to what the norm is that they think that they should draw what is expected. So you see still women design for, sexualized characters. So it's not just change in isolation doesn't have the effect. You always have to think about that you put an identity in a norm that already exists. And then what we see quite a bit is the response to backlash, or the lack of expectation of backlash, that characters, for example, are withdrawn, while we think there's enough evidence to, if you do it evidence-based, that you can prevent the backlash, or at least take it into account and know that it will come. So yeah, a lot of characters we see have been withdrawn because of not really a thought out process, or not a sincere reasoning for doing it. And we also see that there is a misalignment between the creators and who they think their audiences are. So for example, we see a great allyship, so a lot of people who really want diverse content, and that group is growing. Plus, users such as Black women gamers are a huge growing group, but they don't have, they aren't served the characters that they would use. So there's a whole market that we think is unexplored. So lastly, then, evidence-based intervention. So how should we then actually do it, right? I don't think we want to pretend that we have all the answers, but something that we have learned over time is that it's really important to think about what is the goal that you have with the media product that you want to create, and who is it really for? So do you want to present a mirror for somebody who doesn't have a mirror yet? Do you want to present a window into the lives of others that you have not done yet before? And then you have to play a little bit with these concepts. So I'm going to try to explain this visually in this way. So if you want to cater to an audience that has traditional gender views, but you want to sort of change their minds, like counter stereotype, then you have to align with some of the things that they are familiar with. So if you create a character, you have to make sure that there are some familiar roles to it, that there's some nostalgia and comfort in an entertaining storyline, and insert something new. So you have to keep something traditional while inserting something new. But if you just want to present a mirror to, for example, minoritized gender group, then you have to also live with the idea that there might be a backlash. So this is a bit of something that we play with. For example, with our course, Representation in the Media, our students do evidence-based design, and they look at a challenge that is currently in representation world, and then they do research, and then for media creators, they pitch their new ideas of TV shows, for example, that how they could do it right based on research. So evidence-based design is kind of what we want to call for. So I can end with the slide of See Me Be Me if you have more questions after this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene and Sindy. And it's too bad because I just saw you moving quickly the slides, and there was Samuel, which is a French TV show produced by Arte. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it because it's amazing. I loved it. I think I watched it 2 or 3 times, and I even bought the comic book to a friend. I really recommend. It's really good. So yes, but thank you for your presentation. If anyone has any immediate question, please put it in the chat. I will directly ask it to Irene and Sindy, and we will also have a final question. On my side, indeed, someone has a question about the workshop and how it goes, and it was also one of my questions. I wanted to ask you a bit more practical, let's say. What are your workshops? What do they consist of? And also, what are the target group? Because you talk about a really, really young audience, so early childhood, and also adolescents. So I was kind of wondering, indeed, what is your target audience, and what do you tackle during those workshops with the youth?
Yeah, so at the moment, our workshops are mainly with our college students and not yet with young people. And it's also because now we are trying to further develop these workshops to make it also, it's quite a tricky conversation to have with young people. And we want to be sure that we do it right. So now we just do it with our students, but we're really trying to also find some partners that together with us would like to develop these for younger audiences. Because I think one thing that we know is missing, and what also results in what Irene was talking about, that we have these adult content creators with a particular background who might not be able to understand these lived experiences of younger audiences and what it's like to, for instance, grow up as a young Black girl in the Netherlands where the predominant society is still white. And I think trying to get these conversations with young people should be the first priority of not just researchers, but all of us. So, yes.
Yeah, and indeed, I just see that Bella said it's a fascinating presentation, but so complicated. And indeed, it's a really complex because it involves so many stakeholders. I mean, now we haven't talked about social media, influencers, different. So indeed, it involves a lot of things. And I just one last question, but I think we'll have the opportunity to talk about it a bit later on. Have you seen, when did you start it exactly to do those intervention? I can't remember if you mentioned the dates.
So I think, we started the whole initiative 2021, 2022.
So just post-COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, so we started conversations on it post-COVID, and then we talked a lot with all types of stakeholders to figure out. And then we realized at some point that it can only work if you really align the research with the needs of society, because we can produce research, but if it doesn't meet in the middle, then we cannot. And we really feel that only through collaboration of all of us can we move the needle forward. And so maybe one quick comment about the social. We do also social media intervention research. So how can we use social media and have kids curate their social media feeds to have role models that are more aspiring than the traditional views. And a workshop we also do tailored. So if you have a specific question for a certain age group, we thus far tailor the workshop to whatever the needs of the media company is, for example.
Okay, it's interesting because indeed there was a question from Yorin, I think, who asked, would you say that these findings and tips are also applicable to an older audience?
Yes.
You would say yes.
Yeah, I think so. So it's all about identification. I think that's like the core underlying need. And also, I think for any human, this need to belong that we often talk about, we sometimes forget that this is also what can be supported by media content that shows you that you don't only belong to one group, but that you can belong in different groups, and there's this openness. So yes, I think the only difference is that for young people who are developing their identity, so when we're talking about gender identity specifically, entertainment media plays a role in also becoming a little bit more secure in making choices that fit with who you identify as, that might be sort of in countering the mainstream norm that might make it feel difficult for you. So I think that's what for us the focus on youth really brings.
So thank you, Irene and Sindy. We'll move on to our next presentation. And before I introduce her, if you could please answer, because there is a couple of more questions in the chat, that would be very nice. Thank you. So our next speaker will be Sylvia Liuti. She's the Director of Internationalisation, Quality Assurance and Gender Equality Expert from FORMA.Azione in Italy. And she will be presenting the Gender Ed Coalition. So thank you, Sylvia, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really happy to be here and have the opportunity to focus and discuss a bit more on gender and how gender is shaped and related to gender disinformation. I'm going to share my presentation immediately so that you have first taste of what we are going to talk about. I think you can see it. Yes, and it is indeed about a coalition, a gender-ed coalition, where the final ED is meant to refer to education, because it's a cross-country coalition against gender disinformation for equitable society, bringing together the educational world and the most activists and social media. So just to go further on what the colleagues before me were mentioning related to social media, and we are from Italy. FORMA.Azione is adult learning learning and education center, accredited also as BET center, and we are experienced in adult education, especially to invest in active citizenship and digital competencies and gender equality approach transversally, also from school education and guidance. So why a coalition? Why we need a coalition to combat gender disinformation? Because the phenomenon is complex. Gender disinformation is very shaping the world. The online world is related to gender-based violence. Online gender-based violence is affecting different generations. Consider that in Italy for sure, but also in other countries, women and girls are the most attacked target group by online hate speech. So this is something that need to be considered and to contrast. And also there's a need of adopt an intersectional approach, considering how we can be really inclusive and considered those who are within the group of women and girls even more at risk of exclusion, like those with a disadvantaged, social disadvantaged background, or those in countries where, for instance, there are also lack of democracy or a risk of attack for freedom of speech. So this is also something affecting gender disinformation. And when we talk about gender disinformation, is a wider concept, starting from definition from Lucina Di Meco. It is really related on how to silence women, especially starting from politicians. So to really not consider their contribution at political and societal level, arriving also to what I mentioned before, gender-based violence. So how contents, misogynistic contents, sexist language are attacking women and representing them. And we saw it also before with the media representation as always related to sexual images. So coalition offered the opportunity to have different views, to group together expertise from different professional background, from the news, the media, and the educational setting, and to have joining efforts for a common goal. This is the idea behind Gendered Coalition. The project is just ended, so we are presenting also some kind of insights useful as lessons learned. And what we need to increase interdisciplinary expertise, not only from the news side, from the media, but again from the educational side, from the civil society side, and also what we experienced from those who are producing content online, influencers, activists who are promoting content, images, and continuous feed the social, the online environment with information, gendered information or disinformation. And intergenerational perspectives is also important. As we learned, youngsters are more aware of, let's say, what's around gender in general, especially related to gender identity. But unfortunately, researchers are showing also that Gen Z, for instance, is really very has still a stereotype vision of the role models. So women more stay at home, and men still again like the male breadwinner model. And cross-national collaboration, because we need support from the different countries where there are different contexts, social-political contexts, that cultural context that influence how gender disinformation then is shaped online. And of course, gender inclusivity as a kind of transversal approach. We used to say that we need to wear gender lenses to see the phenomenon with the right approach that is not the neutral one. So just to mention that our project within the 48, if I remember well, funded under this, let's say, area of media education transversally from Erasmus to Serve and to media program to CREA program, was the only one with a clear focus on gender, having gender in its title. And it's something important to keep in mind because there are pros and cons by being focused on gender. And here I show you why, what we experienced. We wanted to have a clear focus and put at the core of our project gender, clearly mention it. Otherwise, it's always a kind of, no, you can't affirm its existence. You can easily avoid talking about gender, while if you put it at the core, it's explicitly the work you are going to do is focused on this. And for us was a matter of professionalism. Of course, we can talk and discuss about gender perspective also as in a family at societal level, but then when it comes to have a clear definition of what gender is, the concept and how it affects our daily life with stereotypes, with social norms, our opportunity, possibility, and how it contributes to replicate discriminations and gender-based violence also online. It is a matter of professionalism. We need to know what we are talking about and to intervene accordingly. And also starting from wearing gender lenses, we can develop and be more open towards empathy, fairness, and responsibility. This is also, of course, useful to work with all the other diversity, but it's no, at least we are now, we used to say 50-50 people, so women and men, so we need to start from gender. The cons that we found, and we here are representing also this, that of course, when we mention gender, then it's a kind of perceived as a matter of women, no? And we are all women now talking here, and this is an issue. We have to engage more men, and gender is about men, and gender stereotypes affect men, and not for every man there's this macho man role that inspire everyone. So let's think about also this. And when we talk about gender fairness, empathy, and a kind of how to develop now this empathetic attitude through, for instance, social emotional learning, then it becomes again more of the two girls than boys, and this is something that affects then at the end the impact. Gender and gender equality competencies, as I mentioned, are hidden in a current competence frameworks. When we talk about entre-comp or life comp, that it's really about how gender then shapes our behavior, our possibility, our personal social competencies, then you can't really have a focus on this. So we will see one of the main product of our project to put again gender at the core of competence framework. And diversity, equity, inclusion policies, we know that starting from last year at least, and this wave coming from US is under attack. So how to manage this situation whilst, for instance, many companies are dismantling the diversity, equity, and inclusion department. And our approach in the Gender Coalition project was mainly based on two main pillars. I just mentioned it brief before, one related to education and one to activism. Of course, they are together, and we bring them together through the community of practice. But let's see a bit more on how both the areas worked together during the project implementation. In the education area, we had good practices mapping to, first of all, produce some useful resources on the project focused on media literacy, on media education, together with gender. So to better inform also educators and practitioners. National training, of course, because we, as I mentioned at the beginning, we need to contextualize with the training activities according to the specificity of both the education system and the situation of the media and the gender, let's say, in general, MOOC. So very detailed set of resources online on a platform of the Hellenic Open University, where not only academics, but also practitioners, gender experts, activists, and teachers can access this set of resources. And then workshop and webinars that we, of course, realized and in the 2 years duration of the project, and focused on the different aspects and targeting the different professionals involved. For instance, also journalists, together with the National Journalist Association. At the activism level, we again take advantage of the good practices mapping as a tool to invite other to produce, to build on these experiences they have, other practices, other projects, to nurture this repository, and so to increase the attention of both the media, education, and the focus on gender. We organize the Civic Hackathon, a competition for what we call MIL educators, so media information literacy educators, as a wider concept, not only those really as teachers, trainers in charge of education, but those who are journalists, bloggers, content creators, activists online, who really inform people, produce content that can affect the learning pathways of the different users. And this was a competition, and then produced some social media campaigns through the competition. The media campaigns were one of the deliverable that was were most impactful in targeting a larger audience, and then the final conference, of course, as a kind of meeting to have not only academics but also researchers, but also practitioners from the different country involved: Italy, France, Bulgaria, and Greece. And the community of practice is there, is still there. I invite you to join it as a transversal needed group where to further discuss, where share materials, practices, where to learn from each other, where propose and organize initiatives that aim at increase knowledge and participation on this topic. And here is what I briefly mentioned before: a key deliverable, that is the gender competence framework for male educators. This is missing. There's no a clear focus in the competence framework on gender, as I mentioned, and what we wanted to do. And here is only an infographic, but if you go on the chat and visit the website, you can have the detailed version of the competence framework, really to give to put gender equality as a structural dimension of media information literacy. The data are there. The women and girls are attacked. Gender-based violence is about women. We have a problem, transversally a problem, so we need somehow to react with a structured way, and the competence framework goes in this direction. As you can see, we have some key areas of competencies: critical awareness, empathy, that then we have, and now as a result also more empathetic attitudes towards the different diversities, content creation, having in mind gender the gender aspect, the gender perspective, and advocacy and change. So how we can contribute in create and change the policy at media, no, in the media sector. And what is important now that the project is ended, but we are still thinking about how to follow up, because the competence framework as per se interesting further developments in the sense that, for instance, can inspire how to assess competencies or for those who are practicing as journalists, bloggers, as I was saying, are staying in an online environment, producing context. What kind of assessment refer to the learning outcomes defined, for instance? What kind of training, how to design the training according to the different target groups we are targeting, school at different level, school teachers, school trainers, or students, or the academic level, or adult education, not through non-formal adult education pathways. So what kind of contents, descriptors I can take, I can further elaborate from the competence framework. And of course, and what is highly needed, more the cyber world involvement, algorithm bias, how to really tackle gender-based violence. And here is an invitation to all of us, all of you, but not only, again, to recap a bit why it is important for the gender coalition to have on board diversity. So for sure by gender, because we have to contrast this idea, perception to that gender, when we talk about gender, is a matter of women. So engage more men and the non-binary voices, also to enrich the environment and the perspective, and also according to also this let's call it movement, but not the manosphere, this content related on how masculinity is now depicted. We can now learn also from the engagement of more men on this. By age, of course, as I said, we need to learn at the different ages, and also could be a good platform for a better dialogue among generations as parents and children on this. There's a need to be equipped and to have the right tools and approaches. Geography, as I said, we have different European countries with different level also of media use, awareness, and how also the democracy are managed, let's say, in the different countries, and by professions. And because we found that there's really an opportunity to have shared practices to discuss among those who are more on the side of education, formal education, and journalists, influencers, activists, and content creators, and policymakers. And here I wanted to share a bit some key achievements of the project, not only to give account of what was positive, some success, but also there's behind probably a need of then we had 8.3 million cumulative views of especially the social media campaigns we had, and especially from Bulgaria and Greece. They had influencers and a combination of offline and online activities that were very successful. We have to increase a bit more the number of the members of the community of practice, although we have it even beyond, of course, the countries involved in the project implementation. And we have many international participants at the final conference in Paris, also with a good result of the live stream. And to conclude, some challenges and lessons learned I would like to offer, because I think it's really important, and something was a bit mentioned before related to money, where the money goes. For influencers was like this. We learned it during the social media campaigns designing, and so not always they are so free if they are, for instance, managed by managers, by other companies. So it's not so easy and to engage them. And then we have what we have mentioned, gender is weaponized as a tool to polarize. So it's a clear strategy online. So we need to react and to do something more effective. And it was a very ambitious project because we planned and delivered many activities in only 24 months. Two threats we have, what we were mentioning, that during the project implementation, the platforms changed their policies, and it's something really affecting, and the diversity, equity, inclusion was clearly impacted by this. And tech-based gender violence is growing rapidly, so we need to focus more on critical thinking and culture shift. I finished my time.
Yes, indeed.
I leave these recommendations for the future, but I can leave you. I will share with you the presentation. So I'm stopping here.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for your inputs. Indeed, we're running a bit out of time, so there is already a couple of questions, but I will keep them for the open discussion at the end. However, I have two questions on my side. First, you were talking about national workshop, and I was wondering if you had, outside of the partnership, local organization with who you work with. For example, because I was thinking in Belgium, we have EVRAS, which is the education for sexuality, emotion, and let's say relationship at large. They tackle, for example, identity, gender, and all of that. So I was wondering if you partner with some youth organization, for example, things like this during the national workshops.
Yes, and if Martina Morbidelli, my colleagues, want to jump in on this, for instance, what we did in Italy, for sure, we partnered with the journalist order, the Order of Journalists, so to have them engaged in their mandatory, say, training. So to have a focus also on this in their mandatory training, but also in the other countries, in Greece, and Bulgaria, they engaged with civil society organizations also to especially in Greece for the gender-based violence focus.
Okay. And one last question. You were mentioning about the US administration under Donald Trump and the threats and what's going on at the moment. I was just wondering, also really quick questions. You did some media campaigns, and I was wondering if you had any resistance, if you had, attacks, for example. I was just wondering.
Yeah, was a clear attack in France. Martina, please help me. You probably know a bit more, but that was banned. The influencer, please, Martina.
Yes, but
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Martina Morbidelli from FORMA.Azione. And yes, we had some example of shadow banning in France. So technically, it's just posts and reads on Instagram and on Meta that were not spread.
Okay.
And in some cases, there was just this shadow banning. So instead of direct attacks,
yes,
were
reporting
for political campaign. There were more about reporting and shadowing profiles.
The content,
and it was harmful to the influencers who were collaborating with the project, of course, because their account was shadow banned and not just us. So that had the major impact. But we had the opportunity to see in action a reaction from the fan base. I don't know how to call it, fan base of the influencers were reacting with creative posts and mentioning gardening or non-harmful, themes not perceived as harmful to bring back the visibility of the accounts. So there was movement, engagement for sure. Meta must be happy again.
So thank you very much, Sylvia and Martina. And we'll move on to our last speaker, but not least, Monica Duran Ruiz, so responsible for international relation, media and IT
lawyer from the Catalan Audiovisual Council in Spain. So Monica, the floor is yours, and she will be talking about reports that they've been working on gender values and gender stereotypes.
Hello everyone. Hello, Chloé. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you today. I will try to get cruise altitude speed because I want to show you some of the examples that we have been working here in Barcelona at the Catalan Audiovisual Council. We are a media regulator, therefore we monitor the regulations are put in place, and are fulfilled by media services providers. But also as a media regulators, we try to approach transversal topics as gender more, with a proactive action more than just monitoring the fulfillment of regulation. So I will share with you the PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared. Yeah. Do you see it in presentation mode?
Yeah. No, we only see this. Yes, perfect.
Now. Okay, in this first slide, I want to show you this approach that I was mentioning previously, okay? So basically on topics such as transversal as gender, we are approaching them via the contents monitoring / research approach. And the second approach that we work a lot and specifically on these transversal topics like gender is media literacy, okay? Regarding the first approach, the contents monitoring, what we are doing is we issue reports regarding online contents, reports and recommendations. Then we issue as well reports on women present in the media. We elaborate reports on Christmas toys campaigns because this is a very popular report that we do every year. We analyze all the advertisement campaigns in toys from the beginning of November until December when Christmas comes. And we analyze the advertisements start by girls and boys, the chromatisms, and even the word clouds, okay, the language use. Also, when we talk about gender, we are issuing reports on the LGBTIQ+ area sector, and also from a more research approach, we issue every 4 months, we have a quarterly newsletter in which from time to time we include gender topics, and we issue every year an academic magazine, an academic review that is Quaderns al CAC, in which we include as well gender topics, and also we organize monographics regarding gender, okay? And as for media literacy, our policy on media literacy is called EduCAC. So if you look at the EduCAC webpage, you find all our initiatives on this on media literacy, and you can find the EduCAC awards, or you can find recommendations for families, you can find the newsletter on media literacy that we issue every month, you can find all the interviews with experts, and there is a special place for the EduCAC teaching materials that are materials that we have organized for the teaching community of the schools in Catalonia. Okay, so these materials have been done alongside with practitioners, with educators, with pedagogues, with all the profiles that is needed to elaborate this kind of materials. What I'm going to explain you are examples of some of our interventions in the field of gender and how we analyze / deconstruct what's going on gender related to the contents that are disseminated online and offline. Okay, so my first examples will be on how we have deconstructed the contents that we have found online. This is the first report that I want to share with you. Is called Fake News on the Internet, the Gender Discourse. And the three first different categories that you see in different levels of gray are the three categories that we were organizing after having monitored a series of contents, okay? The first category of the fake news related to gender discourse was the creation of a falsehood from scratch with no relation to a real fact. So something that is purely invented, okay? The second category of in which we were cataloging the contents that we analyzed in this report were the contents that were coming from something, some data, some fact that could be at the beginning true, but that this fact or data has been distorted in a way that when it gets as a content, it's false, okay? But has, you know, at the start, at the onset, there was something true. And the third category is the dissemination of news of fake news that comes from satirical websites, okay? So what happens with this? So there is the question of the viralization through the social networks and the search engines. The more we are reproducing these fake news, these three categories of fake news, the more these contents will appear in the search engines and the more will appear in the social networks. I will show you some examples. An example of the first category, something that was purely invented from the beginning, okay? I don't know if you heard about this piece of content that was saying that the Icelandic government was paying 1,800 euros per month to men marrying Icelandic women. So this was starting, this content was started in a digital media outlet, and it got viral and viral and viral until that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Iceland had to make a public announcement saying that this content that was circulating was not true. Okay, but this is the thing, no, that it's starting and then it gets viral and then it spreads, and for some people could have this feeling of certainty, no? That as I'm saying that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Iceland had to say that this piece of content was not truth. An example of the second category, something that starts or that has as a source something that it's really happening or it's true, but in the end they are distortioning in a way that it's false. Okay? The first one, I don't know if you have heard about it as well. At the time of the report, the Oxford University was announcing that they were going to extend 15 minutes the time of the examinations that they were conducting, okay? So started to be viral the fake news that only for women, the University of Oxford, you know? So this piece of news that it was truth at some point, it was distortionate and only focusing on women. The second one, 80% of reports of gender-based violence are false. We were finding a lot of content on this regard, no? And what you have to deconstruct is that this is a false content because only the 0.01% of these denounces are false, okay? Denounces can be dropped because of lack of evidence, because a lot of situations, but it is 100% false that 80% of reports of gender-based violence are false, okay? Another one, the Andalusian government, Andalusia is a region, a Spanish region in the south, so they were announcing that they were going to cover the tuition fees of the university for those women something was related to gender violence. So the piece of fake news was interpreting that only to submit a denounce, you will have this tuition covered. And the real policy was that women with judge decisions that on this topic, they could have this kind of tuition, but not for the simple fact of submitting a denounce. Okay? And the third example is one content coming invented by a satirical web page. Okay, so they were starting. Oviedo is a city in the north of Spain, and this satirical web page, they were saying, okay, the city council of Oviedo has published that it's banned, looking and addressing women on the street. Okay, so this is purely false. But it starts as a joke, and then it gets viral, and then it gets into the search engines and so on, okay, and gets, this false image of truth, which it's not. Another example of online content, we were conducting 2 reports on the incitement to hatred of women, okay, working with the Catalan Women's Institute, which is the
Monica?
Yeah.
Sorry, just I think we can maybe skip a couple of examples because
okay.
I see that we're running a bit of time and you have a lot of slides, so I think a couple of examples, will be fine.
Okay, so you have them all in the PowerPoint presentation, the incitement to hatred of women, also content that encourages cyber stalking, and also content that sexualizes videos of minors. All of these examples put, the gender issues, but specifically women in some, negative connotation. In 2024, we published this report, the representation of women in television and radio, how much, how, and what they talk about. And we wanted to reply these 4 questions, okay? The weight of gender equality in programming, the presence of women, the image of women that is being transmitted, and the evolution of the presence and profile of women that have been evolved in the news. The weight, so in the left-hand side, there are the public service media in Catalonia, the channels, and in the right-hand side, you see the Spanish channel, the Spanish public service media channel, especially for Catalonia, the local Barcelona television, and the 2 radios, the public service media and the commercial. You can see the weight of gender equality, okay? The presence in women, that women have in programming. You can see as well that the presence does not reach the 40%, which is the minimum reference for parity. The presence in daily news, well, you can see that the presence is reduced to 1/3 of the appearances. The social spheres, okay.
And Monica, sorry, we struggle to hear you a bit now. Maybe if you get closer to the computer.
Closer. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So some positive aspects. There has been like a reverse in the stereotypes. You can find an increasing presence of women in science, technology, security, and defense, but still there are a lot of cliches, as this image of women as a caretaker. So the presence of women in education and health is still, if you compare with the percentage of men, I mean, there's a much more higher representation of women. Social spheres in daily news. As you can see, there is widespread representation in various areas, politics, media, economics, and sports, but nevertheless, both women and men appear mainly and in similar proportion as political representatives. And this is a very interesting topic, and is the appearance of women. And in this report, we were finding out that age is a filter that media are using. Okay, so when women appear on TV and radio, and mostly on TV, is because they are young. But as they are growing old, they tend to disappear if you compare with the presence of old men, What they talk about, this is important. When the women talk about health and education, the percentage, it's 40-60%. When it's talk about science and economics, this percentage is reduced. And when we talk about gender-based violence, this is a topic very important for women, but not very relevant for men. This is an evolution from 2004 to 2024. You can see that there's a steady, is rising, but we are going to a plateau situation. And here as well. Okay, so the portrayal of women. Here you have the main conclusions, and I'm going to go to the other report. Another report. This is the toys advertisement campaign. On linear TV, you can see that in the left-hand side, you have the spots in which girls are appearing, and in the right-hand side, you have the spots in where boys are appearing, and the contents that they are advertising. For girls, you can see that there is, in the first position is dolls, the second position is representation of pets and animals. Then you have as well the figures, then you have toys, then you have representation of maternity, etc., etc. While in boys, you have cars, you have tech toys, you have, I don't know, action figures, and so on. And also, it's very important, the chromatism of the advertisement. So for the girls, you have these pastel colors, while for the boys, you have these vivid and more adventurous colors. These are the word clouds. So for girls, when they are advertising content for girls, you can have the word look, create, rainbow, unicorn, surprise, wow, shine, while the word cloud for men, for boys, is acrobatics, epics, shooting, battle, incredible, domination, and so on. No? Even my pronunciation is different, no, from one word cloud to the other. And this is when the spots are shared. You know, in one spot you have a boy and a girl. You can also have a look to what they are advertising and the word cloud. Platforms, okay, we have analyzed 62 contents, advertising contents, having 18 million of views. And here you have in the right-hand side, sorry, what it is being advertised by girls, by boys, and girls. If I don't think, because I see you, yeah, by boys and girls. And you can see how the gender stereotypes that once there were in the traditional television have shifted to the online world. Okay, you have seen the girls advertising dolls and reproductions of the quotidianity, while boys are advertising action figures, tech toys, and so on. Also, in the platforms, here are the language. This is Catalan language, but I will translate. So for girls, diminutive, oh, super cool, oh, surprise, oh, what a bubble. And as well for girls, it is important, the personal image. Oh, the outfit, look what beauty. Oh, these shoes are so spectacular. While for the boys, in the 60% of the cases, the language is related to competition. Come on, my cars are the first ones. Speedness. Let's see who is faster. Fight. Come on, I have to eliminate everyone. My power of attack is unbelievable, you know.
Just to let you know, Monica, we have 4 minutes left.
Okay,
3 minutes
I will
left.
go in 4 minutes. So here you can see the gender stereotypes in the traditional television, that there is only the 27.6% of gender stereotypes. The majority, of course, is feminine. And in platforms, you can see there's the 64.5 gender stereotype. Okay. So here you have the evolution and the conclusions. And here is the media literacy. Okay, media literacy, I wanted to show you the educative materials that we have, that they are very popular. We have more than 4,000 downloads. And I have to say that the gender perspective is one of the teaching materials that are more used among the teachers in Catalonia, okay? Specifically for the gender stereotypes, we have two educative situations, learning situations. One targeted for pupils from 12 to 14 years. So there are 10 sessions in which the challenge is how we identify stereotypical representations of gender roles in fiction, and you see the trip that has to be done in the class. And from 14 to 16, this is the stereotypical narratives about gender learning situation in which alumni have to detect and combat misinforming narratives about gender that circulate on the internet. And last but not least, and this is my last 3 slides, we have another educative situation that is what do you bet? And it's focused on the addictions on gambling and betting online, targeted to teenagers. And in this learning situation, there is one activity devoted to feminine, to girls that are gamers. And we want that in the schools as well, in the classrooms, teachers can work that in the class that there are also gamers, I mean, girls that are gamers, no? And through this activity, we are working this situation in class. So sorry, because I went to cruise speed altitude, but yeah, if you have any question on or any interest in some of these reports, I will gladly share or I don't know, talk here in the session, in the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I have one question, and while I'm asking, I will ask then the other speakers, Irene, Sindy, and Sylvia, to join us, and like this we can have the open discussion. Monica, I was wondering, in the different reports, you mentioned that there was indeed in the past, I think years, a change. You could witness a change, and I was wondering if it was due to some policies or level like industry strategy that changed, for example, at a national level?
Yes.
Some measures were taken? Yeah.
Well, we are mainly the driving force, no, alongside with the Catalan government. And what we are trying to approach is this transversal topic from different angles, no? From the media literacy platform, from meeting the Catalan government. So we have one strategy, I mean, to work on gender, but from different points of view, no? From this multi-actor, multi-level collaborative spaces, no, that we try to. So yeah, there is a policy, but we try to spread our. It's like an octopus, no, our tentacles.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question now that's to all of you, actually. It was asked by Adam. He's asking, do you have any advice on how to correct instances of gender misinformation or educate on identify gender misinformation without triggering negative reaction? So I don't know, Irene and Sindy, if you would like to start.
Sure. I think based on what we know from the entertainment media research that we do, is oftentimes it's about something else that they are triggered. And so asking, even though it's counter nature, maybe to ask if it's an interaction, to ask more questions about where it's coming from until you find kind of a common ground. So we have this tool that we sometimes use in class, and that's a statement that is usually controversial, so something related to misinformation, for example. And then students get paired that have very opposite views on them, and then anonymously they have to sort of come to an agreement. And because it's anonymous, we see that students are way more open to share things that they are otherwise vulnerable about. And it seems that most of the time there is some sort of shared agreement. And if you get there, you can find solutions. So, but it requires peace of soul to be able to go there and do that, and not get triggered, but really are curious. Get curious to where it's coming from. And it's usually never about the thing that they say it is, but you have to have the stamina to go there. Yes.
Sylvia, would you like to add something? Because you mentioned about collaboration also, for example.
Yes, collaboration also as a kind of technique already a bit mentioned and reported in the chat of this media for fair play, also a kind of use the same narrative applied not for girls and women, to men. So gender swap is, for instance, we had in the sport representation by the main broadcast and the main news. It's now depicting the success as athlete for tennis player, for instance, and there was the title. A big title was "Bellissima," no, so very nice. That was, and use it this just as an example. And there's a video, so it's for men, no, they are so powerful, a great athletic performance, no, so this could be a way not to directly, underline the negative aspect, but just to think about if you are targeting with the same approach, with the same narrative, the other gender, no? So.
Yeah. And Monica, would you have any advice on a regular, for example, point of view? We can't hear you.
Well, there was this question in the chat. I was thinking in something that I wanted to share with you. When we were starting doing these online reports on gender and other topics, what we were doing is to send this to the public attorney to see if there would be a constitution of a crime, and also to the platforms. Okay, and during the first 2 years, we were not having any counterpart. It was when we started to organize press conference that the platform, we were having a contact person, to whom you could send a report. And in the end, we were turning into nearly trusted flaggers for YouTube, no? So, I mean, from something that it is perceived as negative, monitoring of contents or monitoring what you are doing, by working in a serious way, you start to build up trust, and trust is fundamental to build up strong collaborative spaces throughout all the actors, the relevant actors, no? I mean, regulators, practitioners, academics, platforms, etc., no? So this would be my piece of advice, to build trust, and to build collaborative spaces.
Thanks. I have also a couple of questions that I wrote down myself. I was wondering, what are the most urgent area of research or practical application in the field of gender and media literacy that you believe require more attention or resources in the coming years, or right now? I know it's a really complicated questions to answer, but yeah. Monica?
Well, to be honest, we are going to keep on working on the representation of women in the news and the daily programs and the current affairs, because we think it's the reports that we have to focus more when it comes about gender, without not forgetting, I mean, our media literacy, approach. These reports. We are a little bit lucky that in Catalonia, our main broadcaster is the public service media, so it's a good broadcaster. So we don't have a lot of problems regarding gender, no? Besides the ones I have portrayed. But we want that these gender stereotype, women seeing as a caretaker, no, in health and education, could be shifted, this percentage that I was showing.
Yes.
So we are going to keep on conducting these kind of reports, especially on daily news and current affairs programs.
Okay. Sylvia?
Yes, I was thinking what is necessary, and we tried to at least target the journalists, so as a kind of mandatory contents, because there's a lack, although there was this in Italy, this from a group of a female journalists, this so-called Manifesto of Venice, because was written there, and was a kind of now vademecum, some points about gender sensitive language, how to define, for instance, feminicide, how to talk about the victims, and what to take into account. But so many among journalists, and so if again, that's why it was also we wanted to have a kind of competence framework, starting from a kind of policy level, and then to go down to the different educational settings where to implement a competence framework according to their structure and their regulation. And the Order of Journalists have a mandatory number of credits for the journalists, and if every year, if there's a proposal, a kind of mandatory proposal on this, you have how we have to deal with it. Of course, first there were few people was like that. For us was like this. We have few people attending, but then you have to start somehow from.
Yes, you have to start somewhere. Irene and Sindy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that is most difficult is the social media landscape. So it's relatively easy, I would say, to map gendered representation in traditional media, but young people today, most of their content is shown on social media. And for us as adults to actually understand what they get to see when all these feeds are personalized, I think this is going to be most difficult. So in some ways, we will need to also involve young people as co-researchers and for them to be willing to share what they see. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges, to figure out what social media content actually looks like for different groups of young people.
Yeah, especially that we do not have access to most of the data. Nothing is provided by the platform, then it's really hard to actually know what's going on there.
Yes.
And who is impacted by what, and And I see that now we're running out of time because we're already over by 15 minutes. But I was wondering if any of you wanted to add something about this topic to our audience. Any last words you would to say? Okay, so I just wanted to let you all know that the presentation alongside the webinar session will be available online on the event page in the coming days. I wanted to thank our free woman speaker, and we'll do our best next time to be more balanced, I promise. So thank you to you all four. If you would like to join us, you can become a member. We have 109 organizations at the moment coming from 31 different countries. We have lots of different projects going on at the moment, targeting, for example, teachers, teacher educators, youth, disinformation, and other topics within digital and media literacy. We have loads of different online webinars, and yes, the list goes on. Finally, I wanted to announce also the rest of the agenda for the spring. We'll have 3 more webinars. The next one in February will be about visual misinformation. So the whole session will be about a project called Verifying What We See Vis-a-Vis projects. Then, unfortunately, there won't be any Wednesday webinar in March, but we will be back in April and in May. In April, it will be all about producing radio, podcasts for young audience, so media production, media literacy. And then finally, in May, we will really focus on generative AI, Gen AI literacy in higher education. So it's quite new to us because we usually really focus on primary, secondary, but this time we'll be focusing on higher education. So thank you all for attending this session. I wish you a good afternoon and see you next time.